Here in Washington, a lot of focus overseas. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is getting ready for perhaps his biggest challenge to date. He meets with Russian government officials tomorrow. This comes as the Pentagon continues to investigate what role, if any, Moscow played in last week's chemical weapons attack in Syria. We have Fox team coverage tonight. James Rosen's at the State Department with contradictory signals coming out of the White House about regime change in Syria. But we begin tonight in Moscow with correspondent Edson. Hello, Rich.
Good evening, Brett. After Russia and the United States spent the better part of a week condemning one another, the Trump administration sends its highest-ranking official yet to Moscow. He arrives within 24 hours. The day before he arrives in Moscow, his first trip as Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson spoke before an Italian memorial commemorating the victims of a 1944 Nazi massacre.
And we rededicate ourselves to holding to account any and all who commit crimes against the innocents anywhere in the world.
However, the specifics of doing so in Syria are unclear, as is the investment the West is willing to make there. Secretary Tillerson is in Italy, meeting with foreign ministers of the Group of Seven, or G7, with counterparts from France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Canada, and the United Kingdom. And at the White House, continued rhetorical pressure on Russia.
It speaks pretty loudly the number of countries that have stood shoulder to shoulder with this president. Russia, on the other hand, stands with Syria, North Korea, and Iran.
It is now Secretary Tillerson's task to confront the Putin regime directly in Russia as he departs Italy for Moscow tomorrow. The secretary has spent days criticizing Russia for supporting the Assad regime and failing to destroy all of Syria's chemical weapons.
Regardless of whether Russia was complicit here or whether they were simply incompetent or whether they got outwitted by the Bashar al-Assad regime, you would have to ask the Russians that question. But clearly they have failed in their commitment to the international community.
This morning in a conference call, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, quote, "The U.S. side has thus demonstrated a complete reluctance to somehow cooperate on Syria and take into account each other's interests and concerns." The Russian Foreign Ministry added it could work with the U.S. on counterterrorism. However, that's becoming difficult because the attitude towards Russia in Washington, as the FBI and U.S. Congress investigate allegations of Russian interference in the 2016 election. Moscow has denied involvement. A senior State Department official told Fox News to expect that issue to come up when Secretary Tillerson meets Wednesday with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The official also says the secretary would meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin if he were invited. The Kremlin said earlier today no such meeting is on President Putin's schedule. Brett?
Edson in Moscow ahead of the secretary's visit. Rich, thank you.